So, Graham, we'll start with transfers, which is really what everybody, well, the only thing that anybody's really interested in at this time of year. There have been two players specifically heavily linked and heavily reported by ourselves in the Yorkshire Evening Post, Sean Longstaff and Anton Stark. What is the latest with them?
So we said on Monday that Leeds still considered both of those players viable targets, still players that they were pursuing and felt like deals could be done for. I know there was some noises last week that Longstaff was maybe dead as a deal because Leeds hadn't been successful with another bid, but that was never the case as far as we understood it, and they were still tracking him. The Athletic reported that they'd agreed a deal in principle, which is the case. Leeds and Newcastle have found common ground and can now begin to progress the deal. We're not quite at a done deal just yet. Nothing's been finalised and signed and announced, but it would be a surprise now if that one wasn't to get across the line. It's one that makes sense for both clubs, I think, and for the player in particular. You know, he won't be the first Newcastle player to go and seek game time elsewhere as they continue to change and evolve their squad and look at the Champions League and things like that. He ticks a lot of boxes for Leeds United. You know, Premier League experience, very mobile, gets about the pitch, very competent, defending and attacking. I think is a very good option for Leeds, and yet more sensible business along this kind of very clear, defined profile that we're seeing in all of Leeds' recruitment work so far this summer. As for Anton Stark, again, on Monday we said that Leeds still saw him as a viable target. It wasn't a case of one or the other between him and Longstaff. Leeds want to diversify their midfield. He brings huge size, height, strength, wins the ball on the ground, wins the ball in the air. Very, very good at dealing with it as well and can progress the ball. Going to be a bit more costly than Longstaff, but I think this is one that Leeds feel is that the juice is probably worth the squeeze. And they continue to talk to Hoffenheim. Right back at the start, we reported on the 1st of July that Leeds were interested in Anton Stark. And at the time, the feeling was this would be a more long, drawn-out affair. And that's exactly the case. It's now the 16th, so 16 days on, they still haven't got a deal done, but they still feel like they can get one done. And in terms of an agreement with a player in personal terms, that's not expected to be an issue at all.
Just on Longstaff, I've seen quite a few kind of dismissive comments from some, I will stress, some Leeds United fans around, you know, his suitability and whether or not, you know, maybe it's just not a sexy enough name, and I think he's probably, you know, that's mainly the issue. But I think I'm probably in agreement with you that when you come up into the Premier League, you know, it's all well and good bringing in big, strong, mobile players from Germany, but that Premier League experience is absolutely key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think he physically fits the profile. You know, physicality doesn't just have to be 6'4", legs like tree trunks. You know, it can be a player who's incredibly mobile and has a great engine and a great work ethic and can get around the pitch and bring intensity off the ball, and also then help you move it quickly when you get it. You know, far be it for two bearded Northern Irishmen to start talking about the sexiness of others, but I completely get the point. This isn't a particularly sexy one, and also because it's been slated for so long, almost the same with Stach, fans almost get over the idea of this player coming in and they get over the excitement long before the player actually signs the deal. You know, whereas if a deal only comes to public knowledge just before he signs the paper, then there's a bit more excitement to it. But ultimately, Leeds fans, I think, this summer are only really going to get excited about attacking signings. You know, those are the ones that will get people's blood up. Players who score goals, players who make goals, players who'll score the goals that might well keep Leeds in the Premier League. But you also need those players who will do the dirty work. And Longstaff is definitely someone who'll roll his sleeves up and do that. And the midfield will be stacked, you know, if you forgive the pun, because they've got Ampadu in there already. They've got Tanaka in there who's got incredible quality. Ampadu, to me, has always looked like one who's got Premier League potential about him. Maybe needs a chance to prove it in a good team, which Leeds hope they'll be. And Tanaka, you know, he got he got run over a couple of times late last season when the physicality and the endurance race that the Championship is really caught up with him. But on the ball, he's just got incredible quality. He's so good at dealing with the ball in tight spaces and winning it back and using it cleverly. And he's got a bit of an attacking bent to his game as well. So they've got really good options if they get those players in. And then you've got Gruev as well, who's got an engine, gets about the place, can pass it short and long. He's one that I would maybe question if there's that much of a role there for him other than as an option, other than as cover, and whether or not he'll be that happy with that kind of role. But at the minute, in terms of outgoings, it's very, very quiet from a Leeds point of view.